Frank Herbert's Dune, a sci-fi classic originally released in 1965, is a sweeping epic that asks and answers the big questions about humanity and human civilization. To say nothing of the follow-on series that is still ongoing to this day, co-authored by Frank Herbert's son. It's so sweeping, in fact, that it's very difficult to translate to the screen, as evidenced by the original 1984 film version, which to this day gives me horrible nightmares. Thanks, Dad, for showing that to me as a 6-year-old. Now, 37 years later, we have the Denis Villeneuve version, which, if you've seen the trailer, you know is visually beautiful, which rectifies the problem of the previous film version, which, to my mind, was intentionally ugly for some reason. So that's one problem solved. But what about the content? How does that stack up to the source material? Let's talk. Hello, shameless writers. I'm Kristen McTiernan, the nonsense-free editor, a professional writer and editor with over 15 years of full-time experience, here to give you your weekly dose of writing wisdom, and in this case, a little bit of movie nerding out. This is the second installment of my book versus TV series, which doesn't exactly review the TV or movie in question. Really, it's more of an analysis of how it was translated to the screen and exactly why the film creators made the choices that they did when bringing the source material to the screen. If you're looking for just a straight movie review, I highly recommend either Chris Stuckman or Amanda the Jedi here on YouTube. They are my go-to movie reviewers. For those of you who are not familiar with Dune the novel, it is as I previously said, a sweeping epic with a rather difficult to explain plot, but I will do my very best for those of you who are not familiar with either the book or the film. The movie begins with Paul, who is a member of House Atreides, which is one of many noble families in the far distant future, who rules a corner of the galaxy underneath a sort of galactic emperor. Paul's father, Duke Leto, is given the coveted planet of Arrakis, also known as Dune, which is the only location where the spice can be found. The spice is what makes interstellar travel possible, so it is very important, and this seems at first to be a kind of prestigious assignment. But as our villainous Baron Harkonnen says within the film, when is a gift not a gift? And as it turns out, this is not the gift that House Atreides was looking for. Paul is 15 years old in the book, and from what I can see from the film, he's probably supposed to be about that age as well, as opposed to the 1984 film where they aged him up to be a man in his mid to late 20s. Once they get to Arrakis, it's determined that the Emperor actually sent them there to be slaughtered, ultimately. They don't really discuss the reasons for that in the film, but in the book they do. And Paul and his mother, Lady Jessica, are forced to basically flee for their lives into the desert. Their entire family is being hunted down, and everyone who serves them, leaving them at the mercies of the native people of Arrakis, the Fremen. The important thing to realize about this film is that it is only the first half of the book Dune. This is a positive thing. A lot of people have already mentioned that the film kind of feels unfinished, like there was more to say, it wasn't a good stopping point. And that makes sense, because if you're dealing with an epic film, we understand that modern audiences are not going to put up with an intermission the way they did in the good old days. So the only option was to split it into two, a choice that I am very fond of. So the question is, in this translation of the first half of Dune, what was the execution like? Well, let's talk about that. First off is the casting, and if I'm being perfectly honest, the cast is the only reason I saw this movie and read the book. You see, I tried to read the book on 2 previous occasions. Once when I was in high school, because it's a sci-fi classic, and my dad loves it. As previously mentioned, he made me watch it. Well, he didn't make me watch, but he was watching the stupid movie. It was very traumatizing. It didn't give me a good impression of the book. But I tried to read it in high school. I got bored and quit before they ever got to Arrakis. The second time I tried to read it in college, same thing. I was bored. I was not interested. This time I did, and solely because of the cast of this new version of Dune. Let's put aside for the moment that every male cast member is a smoke wagon. We're going to put that aside. But seriously, they're gorgeous. Timothée Chalamet as Paul, though apparently a man in his mid-20s, looks every bit the gangling teenager, and I'm very pleased with that choice. The thing that I liked most about Timothée Chalamet's performance is that he acts like a teen. He acts like someone who is afraid of the future that he can now see. It's not just the war that he wants to avoid. It's all of it. His performance choice and the script that he's working for makes it very clear he is not okay with the Bene Gesserit meddling. He is not okay with what is expected of him. And he is not okay with the fate that he sees barreling toward him. None of it, not just the war. To me, he seemed much more emotive than the Paul in the book, and I was very fond of those acting choices that he did make. Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica, we're going to put aside for a moment that she's only between 10 and 12 years older than Timothée Chalamet. She's younger than me, actually. So even if, it would be a stretch to say that she was a mother of a 15-year-old. But we're going to put that aside because she is a wonderful actress, and she does fantastically here. I was so impressed by her. Stellan Skarsgård is the terrifying and repulsive Baron Harkonnen. He is wonderful in everything that he does. No notes for him. Oscar Isaac is a stoic, honorable, and brave Duke Leto. And I have to say that role is so important, especially because the screenwriters, spoiler alert for the movie, but honestly not for the book. Might want to put it on mute for a second if you want to. The screenwriters made the all-important choice of not telling the audience straight off the bat that Duke Leto was going to die. If I'm going to be perfectly honest, I got so angry when I read that. I think it was like the first page on the book where they told you, oh yes, by the way, Duke Leto is going to die. It was infuriating. Well, at first it wasn't, because I thought, oh, they're telling us right off he's going to die. Okay, that's great. So he's going to die in a couple of pages, right? No, they let us go on and get to know him, this guy that we know is going to die. I hated that they cut the legs out from the tragedy and the sadness of his death by telling us early on. And my father tells me, because he loves the whole Dune universe, oh, it's about bigger things. It's not just about characters, Christine. Everything is about characters. I reject your assessment, Dad. Denis Villeneuve understood that, and he did not do that to his audience. He allowed us to look at the humanity, at the loving moments that Duke Leto had with his son, and the very subtle love he showed for not his wife, it should be noted, his concubine, Lady Jessica. But it was made very clear that this is a man of honor who should be loved and listened to. And so when he died, had I not known it was coming, I would have been just wrecked, the same way that Paul was. It was a good choice and good casting. Jason Momoa and Josh Brolin each play Duncan Idaho and Gurney Halleck, faithful Atreides men both. Javier Bardem is Stilgard, who is a Fremen. Zendaya plays Chani, who will go on to be Paul's love interest. If I'm being honest, I'm not super fond of her. I did not like her performance in Spider-Man, and I don't even know if it was her performance so much, but she's so aggressively modern with her American way of speaking, it kind of took me out of it. She didn't really seem like she belonged in the world of Dune, even though other actors who are American and spoke with an American accent fit in perfectly. She just seemed like a modern girl wearing a costume. Did not like her presence. And finally, Sharon Duncan Brewster as Dr. Liet Kynes. Now, Dr. Liet Kynes is a gender swap, and a lot of times I get mad about those. I get irritated. It's like, why would you change the gender of a character? There was no need for it. Now you're just making this woman act like a man. I don't like it when people do that. But in this case, it was done perfectly. Kynes retained everything that made him a great character, but it was still infused with womanly wisdom, and Sharon Duncan Brewster's performance was, as always, marvelous. She is another actor who is a powerhouse in everything that she does. Such a versatile actor. I was very pleased with her performance. And another mild spoiler, we find out that Chani is the child of Liet Kynes. Because the two do not share screen time, I was okay with the gender swap additionally. If Liet had gone on to live, I might have changed my opinion about the gender swapping, because let's face it, the way a father interacts with his daughter generally is not the same as a mother interacting with her daughter. Ergo, if those two had had scenes together, it might have changed the dynamic. Maybe the dialogue would have had to be changed, but since they're never actually on screen together, I am totally down with it. And if you're going to do a gender swap in a story, this is how it should be done. A big difference between the way the book and the movie were presented is kind of, I don't want to say gendered, But the way the storytelling is in the movie, it's much more focused on relationships, which is more appealing to me personally and stereotypically a lot of female viewers. If you've known any big Dune fans who have read all of the Dune books, they love the Dune world, and they are heavily invested in it, there's a large possibility that that person is male. Now, why does the Dune fandom skew so heavily male? There's the old idea that women are interested in people, men are interested in things. And when you look at the broader concepts of Dune, especially the way that it's written and the fact that it is about bigger things, it's about intrigue, it's about fate within fate, plots within plots, all of that scheming and planning and destiny. These are things that appeal more to the male mind, whereas women like me are more interested in the fact that in the movie, Duncan Idaho acts like a big brother, not just a loyal soldier to Paul. I was touched by the fact that when Paul reveals in the movie that he's having strange dreams and he feels that maybe there's a greater destiny waiting for him on Arrakis, he doesn't reveal that to the Reverend Mother who's holding a knife to his throat. He first tells it to his mother, and next he tells it to Duncan Idaho. Changing the order of that revelation, to me, was very important and very touching. In addition to that, in the book, Paul first hears about the danger waiting for him and his family on Arrakis, again, from the foul Reverend Mother. He doesn't hear. He hears it where he should have heard it from, and that's from his father. There's a wonderful scene between the Duke and between Paul as they walk, and the Duke explains to his son, "There's danger waiting for us, and I want you to be prepared for it." Explaining to him that you are all I have ever wanted you to be, and that is my son. This danger is further cemented as he's talking to Gurney Halleck, his fight instructor, and sort of another maybe mentor, but someone who can be trusted and someone that he knows is loyal to his family. Further cementing that trust and those bonds between people who matter to the story. Yes, the Reverend Mother matters to the story. Yes, the Bene Gesserit are established as borderline supernatural interlopers. But at the same time, is that really great for the narrative? And I would say to you that no, it's not. The opening scenes of Dune, there's a reason I never got to Arrakis the first 2 times I tried, because it's very exposition heavy. Here's the thing about Dune, and anyone will tell you this. You can't get away entirely from exposition. It's just a matter of how you do it. The 1984 film failed miserably. I tried to watch it again. It's on HBO Max right now. And I just remember staring at the screen like, what is this? Why is this woman popping up on screen and just talking to me like she's giving me an informational lecture? It was awful. It was terrible. And of course they had those, inner monologue voiceovers. Also terrible. The new version nails it. When the movie opens, we do hear some exposition, but it's coming from Chani, and it's up against the backdrop of how Arrakis was under the Harkonnens. This sets it up immediately. We don't even need to be told about House Atreides. We know that whoever Paul is, him and his father are going to be better than the Harkonnens. They have to be. It automatically sets up the dichotomy between the two houses and the conflict that's to come. It was masterful. You can't get away from exposition with this dense of material, but it was done wonderfully in the movie. Another thing I hated about the book itself was the fact that they told us right off the bat, minor spoiler, that Dr. Yua was the traitor. Why would you tell us that? It completely cut the legs off of the revelation. And again, the movie doesn't do this because the scriptwriters knew how to write a story. Okay, do not come for me, Frank Herbert fanboys, all right? It should go without saying this book was written in the 1960s. Writing styles are very different. I think I've made a couple of videos about this where you shouldn't reread old content because modern readers have different sensibilities than older readers did. So please do not take away from this that I'm saying Frank Herbert can't write. That would be a preposterous statement. But styles have changed. The emphasis on emotion has changed. And so the movie, in recognition of that, has changed its narrative style, okay? Please don't at me. The movie doesn't linger on Dr. Yua. It doesn't make a point that, oh, well, this is someone you should keep an eye on because he's probably the traitor. It doesn't wink at the audience. It doesn't make a fuss of Dr. Yua. Yes, he's present. He's in the household. He's trusted. And then we find out what he did. And most heartbreakingly, we find out why he did it. It packed a lot more of an emotional punch without those early spoilers that, yes, set up the plot and, yes, set up a lot of things. But the exposition, to my mind, was done much better in the movie, even though time constraints required that a lot be cut out. And in a way, a lot of that exposition wasn't even needed. Within the book, you read over and over again how, yes, Duke Leto is going to die, and Jessica is having a hard time with it because she loves Duke Leto. She loves him. And of course, there's a lot to love there. We don't need that exposition because there are multiple shots before and after they arrive on Arrakis, where every time Lady Jessica is by herself, she clutches her chest and she is choking back sobs. She doesn't want anyone to know that she knows what's coming. It's subtly telegraphing to those of us in the audience who have read the book, we know what's about to happen. And that's letting us know that she knows too, but she's not going to tell Paul or anyone else. I absolutely loved it, and frankly, it accomplished more for me than all of that navel-gazing and internal dialogue that occurred in the pages of the book in the same scene. So my verdict for the newest Dune screen adaptation is faithful. A faithful adaptation, and to my mind, much improved. The core content of the story remains intact while making adjustments for modern viewer sensibilities and for the different needs of a screen versus in a novel. If you haven't seen the movie, I highly suggest you do. Even if you have a short attention span and you might be turned off by kind of the slow beginning, I still recommend it. It's a beautiful film, it's a wonderfully acted film, and it's a wonderfully directed film. Every shot matters. And if your TV is similar to mine, I recommend watching it in a dark room because there were some scenes I could not see anything because I made the mistake of watching it during the day. So if you have HBO Max or if you want to skip off to the theater, watch it in a dark room. You will not be sorry. If you have any books and movies or TV shows that you want me to compare, let me know down in the comments. I would love to get suggestions. I think next month I'm going to be doing The Dry. Australia has been in the news quite a bit. Not for good reasons, but it reminded me of this wonderful book. And then I found out it was available on Netflix. So stay tuned for that. So until next week, take care and write well.